Oh, yes, it was. One of 2 touchdown receptions last night by Garrett Wilson as the Jets put together 2 completely different halves, 2 completely different teams. The Jets that we've come to know and love in the first half, who couldn't fight their way out of the proverbial paper bag, and then the team in the second half that played like the Jets were supposed to play all year long. The show's PFT Live, presented by Accenture. I got to get it right. Big sponsor of the show now. They're on every day, and I got to get the name right. It's Accenture, Accenture, Accenture. Rodney Harrison. Rodney, good morning.
Good morning. Hey, did you have your cup of Joe yet?
Not yet. I was up late last night. You know, you watch the game, and I always am a little, I don't know if agitated is the word. It's just like after there's a game, especially when I was wrong about it. I was so wrong about it. The Jets were favored by 2. The Jets were favored by 2, and I was just like, you know, I'm keyed up after a game when I'm pissed off that I was wrong. I thought the Texans were going to win that game. I thought the Texans were going to win it easily. The problem is in the first half, they had opportunities and they didn't score enough points. And Joe Mixon is awesome, and they don't use Joe Mixon the way they should. They kept trying to force the football in the passing game. There were 8 sacks. C.J. Stroud's numbers weren't good. They only have Tank Dell. Stephon Diggs is out for the year. They're waiting for Nico Collins to come back.
Slow down. What do you mean they don't use Joe Mixon correct? What do you mean by that? Because I think
they should have run the ball more. They were forcing the passing game when they should have just run the ball some more. I thought Joe Mixon ended up with over 100 rushing yards. He could have had 200 last night. He was great last night. He had 106 yards on 24 carries, 4.4 yards per carry. I feel like they were so determined on trying to conjure a passing game that they blew opportunities to move the ball on the ground and really demoralized the Jets.
I thought the biggest thing was their offensive line, and I saw this against Indianapolis the last couple of weeks. They've struggled on the offensive line, and their best offensive line, Laramie Tunsil, he's one of the main culprits. And that's the biggest thing. I mean, they've run the ball, but they haven't done a great job of protecting C.J. Stroud. And yeah, maybe they probably needed to run the ball 40 times, but I thought 24 times was a solid number, especially with Joe Mixon and some of the injuries that he's had earlier in the season. But at the end of the day, man, it has to go back up front. They have to control the line of scrimmage. If you don't control the line of scrimmage, you got your 2 receivers that are hurt. This offense just looks average. And C.J. Stroud looks like a totally different quarterback. And that's the tough part, Mike. How will they correct this offensive line? I mean, it's not, they don't have anybody that you can just throw up in there. And that's the biggest issue that they have on offense.
Well, that's the problem. It's not like there's a bunch of great offensive linemen floating around that you can just sign in free agency or trade for. There's 4 days left in the trading window. Nick Caserio, the GM of the team, should be looking for something to help bolster that offensive line. They have some extra time until their next game. And this was the first of 3 primetime games for the Texans.
Mike,
we're going to see them 2 more times.
I was going to say they also need to look at a wide receiver, because what they have, Mechie and Hutchinson and those young guys, they don't seem like they're ready to step up. And C.J. Stroud, he needs another veteran to come in there and to be able to be dependable. So if I'm Nick Caserio, I'm looking at an offensive lineman, because they're in trouble, Mike. This team is not the same team, and every week that you face a new team, they're going to give you their very best. So it's not just like it's going to be the Jets and the Colts. It's all these teams are going to give the Houston Texans their very best. So they definitely need some help.
One of the points I've been making about the Texans, this came up 2 weeks ago when they were getting ready to play the Packers in Green Bay. They really don't have a signature road win during this period of time that they've turned things around. And last year, it's not like they were dominant. They were 10-7. They won a Saturday night game in Indianapolis to nail down the division. They won a playoff game at home. Then they went on the road and lost in Baltimore. But they've lost badly in Minnesota. They lost to the Packers, a game that was closer than I thought it would be, and the Packers won on a walk-off field goal. But last night, they were up, and they had their chances to get some separation. Once the Jets went ahead on that Garrett Wilson touchdown pass that was ruled incomplete on the field, and replay review showed that even though 2 feet weren't down like Monday night with the George Pickens thing in Pittsburgh, The shin was down before the knee hit the white. It was a good catch, and it's good that it counted because it really was a spectacular one-handed catch by Garrett Wilson. He had 9 catches for 90 yards, but those 2 touchdowns were the difference. Once the Jets took the lead, I felt like the Texans weren't equipped to come back. They got down into the red zone fairly quickly on the next drive after the Jets took the lead, but then that's a one-handed catch in the touchdown for Wilson as well. He had 2 one-handed catches for touchdowns. But once the Texans got down into the red zone, they got cute. They had Joe Mixon throw a pass to C.J. Stroud. They had a field goal that was made. They took the points off the board as they should have after a personal foul, and then they missed the next field goal when the drive petered out. Once that 27, 29-yarder hit the goalpost, I knew that's it. The Texans, they're just done. The Jets, kudos to the Jets. They were horrible in the first half. They were chanting, sell the team. By the second half, it was a different Jets team that showed up.
Yeah, you talk about Garrett Wilson and just his ability. And I think he's really finding out or feeling the effects of having a Davante Adams, a guy that draws a lot of attention. Now he's getting a lot of one-on-one opportunities, and this kid is taking advantage of it. We talked about the 2 one-hand catches. I mean, just beating his man-to-man coverage. And this is going to continue to happen. Garrett Wilson is an extremely talented guy. They're going to continue to move him around, but he's going to be the one that has to exploit the mismatches, and he did a great job of it last night.
Well, and we saw Davante Adams step up with a big night. He had 7 catches for 91 yards and a touchdown. So between the two of them, even with Allen Lazard injured, Mike Williams had only 1 catch for 6 yards. This is the Garrett Wilson and Davante Adams show once Aaron Rodgers gets going. It took him a while to get going, but boy, you really have something in Garrett Wilson. And there's that shin laying down on the turf before the knee goes out. That is a touchdown. And that was the moment. That was the moment the Jets went ahead, and that was the moment I thought, you can't lose that game. After a catch like that, you can't blow that game. You got to do justice to that catch. You got to finish out the game. And by then, the Texans just felt lost offensively. So, the Jets very much alive at 3-6. When you look at the standings in the AFC, it's not going to be all that difficult to pick off one of the teams that's lurking around for the 7th seed. And once they get in, who knows what they would do if they would get in. But one game changes everything from 2-7 to 3-6. What a different vibe for a Jets team that's 2-0 on Thursday, 1-6 the rest of the week, but they're 2-0 on Thursday. And I respect the fact that they found a way in the second half.
It's a mindset
to come out and play well.
Mike, it has to be a mindset, and the Jets have a mindset. Forget about the record. Let's just win one game. Let's get all our guys in the locker room. Let's focus on beating the Houston Texans, and then whoever next after that. So don't get caught up in the standings. Don't get caught up in answering questions about the future. Just keep your feet right where they are and just continue to get better each and every week. And it just shows, too, when you give Aaron Rodgers just a little bit time, he looked like he moved around a lot better than the previous week. But if you give him a little time with these weapons, you get the run game going a little bit, he can make some plays still down the field. He still has a good arm. He still has a great brain. His body fails him every now and then. But at the end of the day, if you give him a little bit more time, he can make plays. And he had 3 touchdowns last night to prove it.
Oh, yeah, he had arguably his best game so far with the Jets. He still hasn't thrown for 300 yards in 33 straight games. It's one of the longest streaks in recent years, and I think it might have set the record for the longest, at least since the start of the century. 211 passing yards, 3 touchdowns last night. They got 74 rushing yards from Breece Hall to balance out the offense a little bit. But one of the reasons he only had 211 yards, the first half he was horrible. He was on the postgame show on Amazon laughing about how bad he was in the first half. It was one of the worst first halves of a Jets quarterback ever. And, he mentioned they understood the season was on the line in the second half. And when you look at the scoreboard, when you play as badly as they did to start the game and it's only 7-0, that helps you get that mindset. It's like all we need is one drive. And they came out with a 6-minute drive to start the third quarter, got down the field, and all of a sudden the game's tied up. It's like, wait a minute. It felt like the Texans were suffocating the Jets and the Jets were embarrassing themselves, and all of a sudden it's a tie game. And that goes to the Texans blowing their chances to get some separation in the first half. There was a fumble by C.J. Stroud as they were getting closer into potential scoring position, and it just, if it would have been 10-0, 14-0 at the half, it might have been harder for the Jets to dig out of it. But it's 7-0, one drive, changes everything. And then at 10-7, the Garrett Wilson catch, it's 14-10. It just feels like the Jets are a different team.
Look, yeah, and especially on the defensive side of the ball, the way those guys were flying around and just the excitement and energy that they played with up front. And having a guy like Hassan Reddick, you can see that he's starting to warm up, that he's starting to feel a little bit more comfortable in the system. And then quite naturally, I think his natural instincts and his natural feel is going to take over. And the thing about Hassan Reddick, I never understood, why did the Jets trade for him and it didn't have a contract worked out for him? This is not a guy that you need him to prove it to you that he can still play. We covered this guy plenty of times, and he's a defensive guy that can play the run. He plays the pass. He does everything you ask him to do. And for the life of me, I don't know why they wouldn't want to make it at least a 3-year, $45 million commitment to this young man. You need a guy like him. And plus, it avoids a lot of distractions on your team. So if I'm the Jets, I'm really excited about Hassan Reddick. He came in with a good attitude. He's playing at a high level. He's playing fast, and he's going to definitely help those guys.
Yeah, look, you never trade for a guy who wants a new contract without at least having an idea that you're going to get a contract done. Ideally on the way in, because he gets all the leverage once you do the trade, and he still wants his contract, and he was dug in. Things got weird. His agency fired him. He ended up getting the deal done, and now he's back. And now that they've won a game for the first time since week 3, they can start building on it. And Al Michaels mentioned a couple times last night that in the production meeting, Aaron Rodgers was laying out how they can beat this team, they can beat this team. They got a lot of sub-500 teams they're playing. They can string wins together. It started with one. They get a little extra time now before they go to Arizona to play the Cardinals, who are no slouch either. But this was the one that at least ended the misery of the 5-game losing streak, 0-3 after interim coach Jeff Ulbrich took over for Robert Saleh. Let's hear a little bit from Ulbrich after he got the first win of his interim head coaching career.
A really cool game for this team, man. After 3 weeks of a lot of adversity, a lot of setbacks, so some self-imposed, for them to have the resiliency and to come back and play the way they did against a really good opponent, was proud of them. We came in at halftime, and the run game was rolling in the first half, and we knew we had to continue to establish that. And once we did, it just opened up the passing game. You know, lightened up the box a little bit, gave Aaron a chance to operate, and he did what Aaron does.
Did anyone say anything at halftime? Did anyone step up, whether it was a coach, you, or anything? It's just a completely different team in the third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, it was a collective deal. It was players and coaches all that spoke, and all acknowledging the fact that there was more out there for us, and we weren't playing to our ability, and came out and played Jets football in that second half.
You know, one of the realities in his 4th game as an interim coach, he's starting to figure out what the job is. You get thrust into it with 6 days to get ready. You're shocked. Everybody else is shocked. You don't know what to do. You don't know how your job is so different on game day as the head coach and as defensive coordinator. It takes a little time to get up to speed. That's one of the reasons why they lost their first 3 with Jeff Ulbrich, and now they get a little something going on. And, you know, to beat a team that came in 6-2, even though they beat them last year 30-6 without Aaron Rodgers, the Jets just apparently match up very well with the Texans, because it's 0-2 for Houston against the Jets in MetLife Stadium the last 2 years, 30-6 and now 21-13. And last night felt worse than 21-13.
I like Coach Ulbrich. I got a chance to spend some time with him when out in Pittsburgh, and just spent probably about 5 to 10 minutes with him. And the guy's smart. He's into it. He's a really good defensive mind. He has a good feel overall for the team. And I enjoyed my time with him. He's a former player. Those guys respect him. And I think he's doing a solid job. Anytime you take over an organization that's going through a mess like the Jets, it's a lot to be said. But the one thing that those guys told me, the players, that they have a lot of respect for Jeff and the job that he's done. They know that it's a tough situation, him coming in. And I thought last night they settled down as an entire team. He had that team settled down. They played a lot more comfortable after the first half. And Aaron Rodgers, if he can get that protection, if they can continue to run the football, they got some weapons on the offensive side of the ball. Of course, that defense has to do a better job of stopping the run. But overall, I like what I see. The only thing that I saw in this say the last few weeks that I'm not happy with. Sauce Gardner. He's just not the same player. I don't know what's going on with his tackling, but he has it's a complete 180, Mike. He won't tackle. He's running, he's shying away from guys. He won't stick his head up in there. And I talked to one of his coaches, and they said that they expressed that to him, that that's something that he needs to continue to work on, something to pay close attention to in the future.
Well, he's such a long, lanky guy, and he gets banged up during the games, and he's just skinny. He's a big,
get in the weight room.
He's
got to get
guy.
in the weight room. Get in the weight room. And that's what you do. You may not get bigger, but you get stronger. And that's what I tell skinny guys. I was a skinny guy. I was 180 pounds when I came in the league. And all I did was just lift weights. I didn't get bigger necessarily, but I got stronger. And when you get stronger, you gain confidence. And then eventually your grown man weight kicks in, and then you get bigger. But yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, I don't know how much time he spends in the weight room, although he's looked fairly jacked in recent years. Here he is after the game on what turned around in the second half and how they can take last night's victory and build on it down the line.
We said we were going to score 28-30. I kind of counted as 28 tonight, even though the scoreboard says 21. But proud of the way we responded in the second half, and I played about as bad as I could in the first half and knew I had to get better from there. You know, it was kind of season on the line there in the second half. Obviously, we wouldn't have been mathematically eliminated, but mentally, to go to 2-7 would have been real tough. Hopefully, it's gives us confidence so that we can beat anybody, because we feel like we could. You know, the way we played on offense in the second half is the way we've been kind of waiting for this offense to wake up. And I know, obviously, I was, close to perfection as I needed to be. But that's a standard I need to play at.
On Sunday, Aaron Rodgers said they want to score 30 points every game. They haven't scored 30 points all year. Last night it was 21. Now he's saying 28 or 30 because they technically didn't. But as a practical matter, they did have 28 last night because they had a touchdown in the first half that wasn't a touchdown because rookie Malachi Corley on an easy walk-in, great play, great design, cuts it upfield, blocking downfield. He's in. Oh, wait. He did the Deshaun Jackson, drop the ball before he's in the end zone. And the ball, if the ball had been recovered in the end zone by a Jets player, it's a touchdown. If it's recovered by a Broncos player, it's a touchback. If it just lays there, this is something that Terry McCauley pointed out last night. If it just lays there and no one recovers it, it's the Jets' ball at the spot of the fumble. What it did was, though, it bounced out of bounds. That's the North Korea play, as Chris Sims calls it. The Texans get the ball. They look like the Broncos. The Texans get the ball 1st and 10 at their 20. So, I mean, you shouldn't even get to the point where you have to worry about where the ball goes. What is it with these guys? And we see it far too often. Once is too many times. It's few and far between that you score a touchdown. Why do you want to drop the damn ball before, during, or after you score? That's your first NFL rushing touchdown. Take it home. Why are you dropping it?
We saw Kyle Pitts last week do it, and he actually got rewarded as a touchdown, which it was clear that he dropped the ball before. My golden rule, and I would tell young players this, when you get in the end zone, get all the way in the end zone and hand the ball to an official. Don't drop it. Don't throw it. Don't celebrate. Don't do anything. Get the ball in the end zone, and once you hand it to an official, you know you've secured and scored a touchdown.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.